All right, welcome in. It is Conversation Monday, the day after Mother's Day here, and we are off. We are back after a week hiatus. This was not on purpose, but what happened is our guest we had my internet decided to absolutely take a dump, and the sound audio was terrible. So we're gonna have to dump it. Hopefully, we'll get the guest back at some point down the road. So no, not to worry. But this week we bring on a college buddy of mine. He is a real estate agent now. He ran Shoot 360, I believe, in Fargo. He used
hmm
had a podcast as well. It is Blaine Cook. Blaine, welcome on. How we doing, man?
I'm good. I'm good. Glad to be here.
Yeah, so we talked about collaborating probably about a year ago or so at around this time too. If memory serves, and you used to have one. Now is that podcast? Are you retired from podcasting, or is that still possibly in the works?
It's no, it's I've just had to take a kind of a long break from it. Just simply with life. I got busy. I have two little boys. I have a 2-year-old
Oh,
Bridger and
you do have two now.
yep, and a
Okay.
and a 7-month-old named Crew. And I tell you what, when you start having kids and life just gets pretty hectic, and so um, I just kind of was like, you know what, I'm just going to take a little break, and once the timing is right, I'll get back into it. And I think, kind of what you said earlier, we had talked about kind of collaborating, and I still want to do that somewhere down the point. I think I'm going to work a new angle though with the podcast. I think I'm going to go kind of more, all encompassing, just kind of life, life events, talk about different things, and then obviously throw in some sports stuff because I'm a big sports guy, so.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Gotcha. That's kind of what I'm trying to do here with Conversation Monday is just kind of have people on, and we're just gonna start talking and see where it goes. I know you were just down in you were just down in Arizona. I saw.
I
How was the bat? Was it for a bachelor party? It looked like.
It was, yeah, for a mutual friend of ours that we went down there
Yep.
with a group of guys, and Arizona is always it's always a great time, obviously with the weather and just the entertainment things that you have at your disposal, and then you're able to do it with some good friends, and yeah, it was nice to escape North Dakota for a few days. Although it's warming up here finally, you
Yeah.
can't beat 85 and sunny down in the desert. So yeah, we had a great time.
Yeah. No, you cannot. I'm actually going down there next, or well, this is released Monday, so I'll be going down there on Thursday night for a bachelor party as well. And then I was down
Oh,
there in January. My dad and I and uncle and cousin we do a golf trip every week, winter to get out of the cold and golf for 4 days and hang out. So it's
if I
always
can,
always fun to get down there.
if you're looking for something fun to do, I will throw out go do, and I don't know how many you're going with, but go do like a pedal bike tour is what it's called. You
Oh, okay.
I don't know if you've seen those or whatever, but you hop on
Yeah.
basically a big wagon that's all propelled by people biking, and they play music and you got drinks, and like it was a blast. We had a great time. They kind of go down through Old Scottsdale and or Old Town, and you'd stop at a few bars, and yeah, we had a great time. And then there's also other bachelorette bachelor parties going on too, so you'll pass them on the street, and everybody's having a good time. So uh, that'd be the one thing that I would definitely try and do if you can with whoever you're going down with.
Yeah, so it's a combined one, and I think the bachelorette party is actually doing a pedal pub while we go
Or
golf.
pedal pub, yeah,
But
that's what it's called. Yep.
so yeah,
Yeah.
but
Yeah,
yeah,
those it was
so
a lot of fun.
yeah, for sure. Shout out Mason if he's listening.
Yeah.
But you're so you have two kids now. Now,
Mhm.
do you ever have time to sleep? Is that
You know,
do you fit that in
it's
your schedule? It seems like you always have something going on, whether you're on doing real estate, you're doing shoot 360 as well.
yeah, it's funny when
Now
you
chasing two kids around.
it's funny when you have kids. I think the whole like kind of thing that people tell you before you have them is like, oh, you can kiss the, full night's rest and all this stuff away, and they'll never. And you know what? I always kind of took it with a grain of salt, and I feel like as a parent, that's just kind of what you deal with, and you're going to be tired. And we lucked out with both of our kids are pretty good sleepers, especially the older ones. So I can't say that like we had that kind of nightmare, first time parents never sleeping situation. But as kids can be, there's surprises here and there, and you just like I said, you kind of take it on the chin, um, and honestly, like you said, I'm I like to stay busy as it is, so I really don't get a ton of sleep, and I don't sleep in really anymore because my body just wants to be up and doing stuff, so that's just I kind of just roll with the punches. But other than that, I'm
Yeah,
enjoying it nonetheless.
yeah, absolutely. You have to. You only get one life, and gotta enjoy what you can. And it's do you have any funny stories you can tell? Because your oldest son now, he's 2, so he's probably running around like a wild
Oh
man.
gosh.
Has there has there been any good stories that you can tell that it's where you want to be where you were watching a Vikings game or one of your teams play, and you were getting mad, and you
Maybe
caught
said some.
yourself slipping and saying a word, and he copied you?
Well, I can't say yeah that I'm a perfect when it, especially if the Vikings are on. It's pretty much all bets are off. I'm a Vikings guy for people out there, which is it's a story in its own self. But I'm trying to think of something that he's maybe done, or he's very very self aware of his surroundings. So it's like mom and I have to be extra careful about just kind of because just when you think he's not paying attention, you think he's doing his own thing, he has no care in the world. All of a sudden, the next day he'll bring something up, and it was like, oh man, I had no idea you were even paying attention. But honestly, he's pretty even keeled. He doesn't. He's very right now. I mean, he's 2, going on what feels like 10. He's talking a mile a minute. And that's the thing when you get to this age. It's like, well, when they were babies, you were constantly like thinking to yourself, "Oh, I can't wait till they can tell you how they feel when they're hungry, if they don't feel good, all this stuff." And then it happens, and then you're like, "Oh my gosh, like, he's really telling us how he feels." And then, whether it's, "Well, I don't want to eat that for supper," or "I don't, no, I don't want to go to bed," and so then it's kind of this full circle moment of like, well, I guess that's part of the process of him getting bigger. But as far as stories, he hasn't really done anything too crazy where it's like, oh my gosh, like what did we get ourselves into? He's like I said, he's a pretty good kid, and but now that could change if you have me on in a year from now, when the other one is a little bit more mobile and doing stuff. That could change where somebody ends up in a suitcase or something and
Yeah.
push down the stairs or whatever. But
Yeah, when they can collaborate on things to do, or one decides that he's going to beat up on the other one.
well, yeah, and I was
Um,
I, I was the baby, so I'm not. It's funny to me. I wasn't used to having uh, a younger sibling to kind of pick on and manipulate. I was pretty much doing my own thing, so this is all new territory for me at least. And uh, but it's
yeah,
fun. It's fun.
yeah, absolutely. I know. I have a couple of friends that have kids now, and that was one they said like around the same age as your youngest son, where it's like, I just want them to tell me why they are crying or why they are acting the way they are, so I can just try to solve the problem.
And then they do
But
tell you while they're crying, and then you're like, "Please stop crying." It's like,
yeah.
there's no in between. It's either one or the other. But yeah, no, it's just funny how that all works out.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So now what got you into doing interested in doing real estate, or how did that job come about?
Yeah, so so I was at Shoot 360. So for those who maybe aren't familiar, what Shoot 360 is, it's a basketball training facility, and what it does, it takes pretty high level precision technology and brings it into a training center, and so kids are in the facility. They're working on their game, but now they've got cameras and things that are monitoring um, their arc depth and their left and right alignment every time they shoot the ball. So very brand new technology, kind of leading edge when it comes to like training uh, software and things like that. You won't see anything like it on the market. Long story short, we brought the owners that I was working for, decided to bring it to Fargo, which was great because Fargo has nothing like it. Even in the Midwest, there's nothing like it. So I got to be part of that build process. So I was the manager over there, and I myself and our assistant manager Sarah, we kind of built that thing from the ground up. Literally, there was dirt, and then all of a sudden, 6 months later, there was a building, and we had people coming in, and um, you know and it's kids, so it's all kids, so like ages from like third grade up all the way into college. So there's a pretty wide ranging demographic of kids. But to kind of answer your question, the schedule was pretty demanding, and so just to be quite honest, it was with two small children. Or Bridger was 6 months old when I took the job, and then obviously a year and a half later is pushing two, and now we have a second one. So the job just became a little bit taxing from a family standpoint, and yeah, it kind of one of those hard decisions you have to make where your kids are only small for so long, and you're not going to get that time back. And so I definitely missed walking away from that world, but um, I still do things as far as personal training and camps and clinics, and still try and help out when I can. That was one of the great kind of luxuries that I had as I was kind of transitioning away. Was the owners were like, "Hey, you're welcome to come back whenever you want, do what you want, be as involved as you want or as little." And so that's been really nice to be able to still have that connection. Because I was working with kids, 6 days a week, and so you get to know them pretty
Yeah.
well. So that was definitely kind of allowed me to sleep at night knowing that like I can still pop in and out. But to answer your question, real estate kind of came up. I've always been interested in it, and for those who are familiar with the Fargo area, and Moorhead and Horace, that's all that's been going on is real estate development. And so, kind of just as I think like most, kind of saw this opportunity of like, well, what could real estate present and all these different things. Well, I had a mutual friend that went to NDSU as well, and he was actually kind of talking to me about doing some rental property investment. And so just through those
Who was that?
so that would be Austin Haas. Um,
Okay.
you might know him. He
Maybe if I
ran,
saw him, yeah.
yeah, he kind of ran in the same mutual friend group of as all of us, and
Okay.
so um, but yeah, that's what he was doing or is doing. And I just like one day I was just, because I was kind of contemplating a change, and I said, "Hey man, like would there be an opportunity to maybe like join your team and actually do real estate as a job?" And he said, "Yeah, like it's not a very big company. So the company is Midwest Invest Realty Group. So it's like I said, it's five, six of us that are on the team. So much smaller than like a Remax or a EXP Realty or something like that. But um, I went in, met the owner, Kyle Riedstrom, is the owner. He was over at Hatch Realty, and then he broke off and started his own team. And so, great guy, great dude, and met the rest of the team and just automatically clicked with them, and kind of the rest is history. So I'm working on the licensing part right now. I'm just waiting to get my test code. For anybody that's going into real estate, just expect it to be a very like drawn out process. You get through the education side, all that. You kind of blaze a trail, well then all of a sudden you're kind of come to a screeching halt, and you're waiting on the state to kind of get the proper materials to you and codes and all this stuff. So for anybody that's out there listening that's like, oh, I want to do real estate, just give yourself at least, 3 months to like, have to get through all of the little hoops. But yeah, so real estate is, yeah, I'm hitting it hard with that. Loving every second of it. I love the freedom, the flexibility. Just landed my first listing here about a week ago.
Wow.
Right in time for the Parade of Homes, which is going on right now. So yeah, lots of fun stuff happening. And now that the snow is finally gone, that was a little exhausting. I think I speak for a lot of people. The snow was
Yeah.
becoming exhausting, especially after this last winter. But now that that's gone, I think it was 85 today here in Fargo. Um, yeah, people are feeling like, okay, now the time, the energy level's up. So,
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it seemed like I've talked to a lot of people, but a couple of weeks ago I had one of my buddies, Sean Hope, on, and we were talking about like this was the worst winter it felt
oh,
like
dude,
we've had in years, because
it
like
was
it
awful.
seemed like it seemed like we would have like in one winter we'd get a bunch of snow, but the cold wasn't too bad. Then we'd have one where the it was blistering cold, we didn't get much snow. This year we got it all. And we
Yeah.
had cold, we had snow. Like these were the worst roads I've ever had to drive on, where it was like I was white knuckling the steering wheel, try like just keep it between the lines, keep it between the lines. And it just felt like the summer is never going to get here. The golf courses were never going to open. I was going to have to go down to Arizona again. Not that I'm complaining about going down there, but I like golfing around North Dakota in those
Right.
summer because we do have nice summers, and we don't and you take advantage of the nice parts of the summer that we have.
And it's
But
convenient. It's right in your
so
backyard. So it's,
yeah,
you don't, like you said, you're not having to go all the way to Arizona. Not that uh, anybody would complain about that, but I totally get what you're saying.
yeah. But so and then we can go. Let's go back to the Shoot 360. So this is
Hmm.
some. I didn't not know that it was. I didn't know that like all the technology that it had in it. So are there? Is it a one of a kind thing? Is Fargo the only place that has it, or um
So
are there similar ones like that aren't named Shoot 360, or is it like a kind of a growing chain?
yeah, so it's a franchise. It was originated out in Vancouver, Washington, and essentially the founder wanted to create a kind of take the video game aspect of like what kids love to do. And I'm much older than a lot of kids that play video games, and but I still love to get on the Xbox and play. So he wanted to take that world and pair it with skills training. And so that's how this whole idea of Shoot 360 came about. And he partnered with some pretty advanced engineers that could, figure out the specifics and the different data points that would help kids train. And really, what I tell parents, or when I was over at the facility, it's we're not Shoot 360 isn't to replace your personal coach, your AAU team, or it's not to take away from something that you're doing. It's to be an added tool in your toolbox. And so, um, and what we're doing is we're giving kids instant feedback. I mean, you and I remember growing up in a gym, empty gym,
Yep.
and we had to we kind of went through our own workouts, and I still tell people there's still value in that. Don't get me wrong. I think going into an empty gym and just kind of zoning out the world is, I think everybody needs to do that. But now kids have the options to be able to still do that, plus get instant feedback and know, okay, am I pushing the ball, am I got too much arc on it, am I too far left, right? It's going to give them all those data points right uh you know within a second. And so I'll ask you, Dylan, do you know that there's a perfect shot in basketball,
I've
statistically
hit it a
speaking?
couple of times when I've played 2K.
Okay, so
I but not no. If you've ever seen me play basketball, Blaine, if there is, it's definitely never come from me.
So the fun thing is when we ask people is, oh, did you know there's a perfect shot in basketball? And a lot of people will associate, well, is it just when you swish the ball, and there is a level of variability to that, and so that can be considered. But from a statistic standpoint, 45 degrees of arc, 11 inches of depth. So the front of the rim to the back of the rim is 18 inches. So our system, or the system at Shoot 360, measures at 11 inches, which is dead center, and then plus or minus 3 inches left or right. So in basketball, 45, 11, and 0 in Shoot 360 world is, statistically speaking, the perfect shot. And so I'll give you a follow up question, maybe a little bit easier one. Um, at what percent, if you hit the 45, 11, and 0, at what percent will you make that shot at? You were to guess.
Ooh, would it be 100?
Very close. So it's 99,
Okay.
99%. But it really, what they do is they exclude the bottom 10% of the data. So we tell people it's 90%. But 45, 11, and 0, it's going to be almost statistically a perfect shot. If you hit that, 99% of the time, that ball is going to go through the rim. And so what's really cool about this technology is that they partnered with NBA franchises, and most notably, the Golden State Warriors, who are playing my Lakers right now, which I hope tonight the Lakers. I don't think they're going to win tonight. We'll get to that, but to just uh, round this off, the Golden State Warriors have the same training software and setup in their own practice facility. So when we had kids come into the facility for the first time, and we told them that their eyes would light up to know that Steph and Clay and Draymond and Jordan Poole, all these guys have the same technology that they're going to be practicing on here in Fargo, which is a really cool thing. And you just for a little for us Midwesterners, it's a an added kind of uniqueness to like the experience of it all, because most of
Yeah,
the Shoot 360s are in big heavy metro areas, Houston, Pittsburgh, Cleveland, where there's other things at people's disposal. But as we know, living up here in the Midwest, we are limited in the resources that we have. So this has been a really cool thing to be a part of.
yeah, no doubt. So how did they come up with the numbers of the 45, 8, and was it 45, 8, and 0,
45,
or
11, and
11
0.
and 8, or
45,
45,
11, and
11?
0.
How did they come up with the numbers of like? How did they come determine those numbers? Was it just a bunch of different trials with different players that this is that when
So
they shoot at this and they examine it?
yes and no. So they did millions of test, shots taken, testing to kind of create this graph of consistent, arc depth and left and right. But they also partnered with engineers from NASA and then Carnegie Mellon, which is a very highly rated engineering institution in the country. So taking some of the brightest minds that the world has, and put them to work on figuring out exactly the specific data points. So between the just the testing and the shots and that they had to take, plus adding these very intelligent people to um, crunch the numbers, if you will, is kind of how they came to figure out the 45, 11, and 0.
Interesting. That's wild. That's like science.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah,
that's
exactly.
that is really cool that some Fargo has something like that. And I don't know who I know I've seen in pictures. I know you've had Grant Nelson, who's could be
Mm-hmm.
in the NBA next year.
Yep.
Um, I know that's the big one that I've seen, but who else, like, as far as like local like high school kids in the area, because Fargo's been a booming place of like really good basketball. You look at the
Oh yeah.
Sems that are
Yep.
playing up at North. The Fargo Davies always has a good team. Claybo is their stud there. Who has all shown up to shoot 360 there while you were there?
Well, we had a really good turnout from a lot of the area schools. So, obviously Grant from the collegiate level was a big name. We also had six NIL NDSU women's athletes that were part of our team, and so that included Heaven Hamling, Sophia Olson, Rachel Novak, Emily Benke, uh, Katie Hildebrandt were the girls that were part of that women's side. As far as the high schoolers go, we've had so many high school kids come in, and with some of those top prospects and like Sem and Claybo, those guys are so busy with their AAU schedule that it's pretty hard to get those guys to come in. It's not that they don't want to come in; it's just their time is pretty valuable, and if they're on a weekend when the facility is probably a little quieter, those guys are out in, Iowa, Milwaukee, Kansas playing in some big time AAU tournaments. So, but for even some of the, you know, maybe not your top prospects, but you have some really, really good players, up and coming players too. Um, you know, we've had a very good contingency of kids come through, and so and really for us, it's obviously we're not staking our flag in any one particular school. We want to be all encompassing. We did last summer, and they're going to do it again this summer. Lori Sieben, the retired Grafton Spoilers women's coach, who coached up there for 35 years, uh, got the job at Concordia as a women's assistant coach. Well, we partnered with her, and she did camps at the facility last year, 3-hour camps, and brought in a ton of teams from up north. Thompson, North Border. Oh, geez, there was. I'm missing. I know I'm missing a bunch, but we had a really good turnout of teams from up north because Fargo currently is the only one that has a facility. But Grand Forks is coming very soon. Bismarck is on the way. I know Omaha is going to have a couple locations. Sioux Falls and a couple locations in the cities as well. So it isn't going to be a Fargo as a one off. They're planning to have several more, all owned by the same ownership group. So that's a really cool aspect to it. But yeah, we're just for me as someone that's kind of um, adjacent to the situation, it was really fun to kind of get things off the ground, and now it's really exciting just to kind of see where they're going to go and obviously remain close um, to the facility, to the coaches, to the players. So
Yeah, absolutely. So is that so? Like, how many courts do you have there? Is it just one? And then, like, how does that work as far as like, does can anybody show up and they got to pay a certain fee, or is it
yeah,
all free, or do they got a certain membership? Different things like that. And then, I guess I'll let you answer, and then I got a couple of follow ups, or maybe, yeah, I have a couple
yeah,
of
yeah,
follow
for
ups.
sure.
So
Well, it's a pretty cool model. So there's 5 skill stations. These skill stations are like 8 by 10 glass screens that you can do passing and ball handling workouts on. There's over 150 different types of workouts on just that side alone. So they range from very intro level type, kind of your left-handed pound, right-handed pound stuff, into very what I would consider a more elite level combo dribble, passing, you know, uh, passing accuracy tests, things like that. So kids will spend 30 minutes there, and then they'll transition to what we call a shooting station, which has like a shooting gun on it, and spend 30 minutes there. So it's an hour workout, 30 and 30. It's booked through a mobile app. What's cool is so if Dylan's time starts at 8:30, as soon as he checks in and the timer hits 8:30, his time starts, and then you are there for an hour, and then the timer will run out. Your screen will go black, and then the next set of um, people that have scheduled just gets loaded up automatically. So you're at any given time, if you're just got one kid in each court, which is typically kind of you can have more than one kid in each station, but if you're just doing a regular session, it's one per. There's 11 kids in the facility at one time. So it's not like a wellness center where you're going to have, like we did at NDSU, or, when you'd
yeah,
have to write your name on a board and wait till your turn. No, it's very, very organized in terms of, and a lot of parents, I would say, you know, 60 to 70%, maybe even 80% of the kids that are there can't drive. So mom and dad, there's a little waiting area that they can sit up top and watch, or they simply just drop off and pick up, which is for most parents, it's an hour of time to go get groceries or do something and uh, come back in an hour and get their kid. And then what's really cool is they have the Fargo Basketball Academy connected to the building. So we have kind of two different training models. Shoot 360 is kind of that advanced technology. Um, you know, Definitely not if you're a newcomer to the game, maybe your skills are a little bit raw. I wouldn't push Shoot 360. I would maybe redirect you back into a Fargo Basketball Academy class, which are more traditional, kind of what you and I maybe grew up on, going to camps and things like that. Classroom setting, 10, 12 kids in a class. And so it's really great that those buildings are literally connected so that, and so for some parents, they have some kid over in an FBA class, and then they've got their older one over at Shoe 360, and so they're kind of killing two birds with one stone,
Yep.
which is really cool. So yeah, and then there's members. So Shoe 360 is a membership-based facility, so every kid has a membership, so they pay by monthly or they have a contract length. And then Fargo Basketball Academy is more pay per class type model. So um,
Okay.
yeah, so it's a really cool thing. I would say and the facility does have a cap. So, the comfortable number of kids, or members that, Shoot 360 can hold here in Fargo at this location is, 325, 325 kids or, active members, I should say. Um, and so, yeah, you don't want to have 600 members because there just isn't enough hours in the day and court space and all that stuff to be able to do that. But
Yeah, and then so when they're done now, because it's all has all the technology. So is it and you said there's cameras all over the place, so it's like monitoring it. So does it do like an auto report of
yep, so
everything
everything.
they've done and like where they can improve on, or like how if they did this well but they have to work on this, their shot, how does that how do they get those reports, and like how much how much do you see the benefit like from a kid when he comes his first day to it to when he finishes a membership, if he had like a month from day 1 to day 30?
Yeah, so every athlete's workout gets tracked to their mobile app. So everything that they do in their session. So there's a TV that sits above the hoop, and then above the TV there's a camera. So that TV is keeping track of their shot percentages. That has all their workout videos. The splash meter is what it's called. So it's this kind of
That's
instantaneous
awesome.
system that will track everything. Well, all of that information then gets immediately downloaded or inputted into their mobile app, and so parents, kids, whoever can go back in and look at all their workouts lifetime. So it's going to track it from the first workout to the 500th workout. And what's really cool is, and each facility is different, so they're all kind of you know, they all kind of have their own different programming. One of the things that that they do is um, we like to keep track of the kids' makes. So at 10,000 makes, so not attempts, makes, they get to cut down the net of the court that they get their 10,000 made shot on, which is really cool. So it's kind of that one
Yeah, it
shining
is.
one shining moment, that uh, I know that I won't get, but so that's cool. And then um, at 25,000, they get like a little, basketball, and then at 50,000, they'll get a shirt. And I left before I ever figured out what 75 or 100,000, whatever the next milestone would be. But each milestone is celebrated. They put them up on social media, shout them out. Hey, Dylan at Fargo got his 25,000 make today. One of 13 kids to do that so far. So we tried to make it a big deal because it is a big deal. I mean, that's a lot of shots to take, and
Yeah.
commitment and time and effort, and so it should be celebrated accordingly.
Yeah, absolutely. That's crazy that like 25 I would be there'd be quite a few years before that happens. But
Some kids get it in a
um
year. I mean,
and
some kids get it in about 9 months, which is it's insane to think about.
yeah, well, and that's funny that you brought up the wellness center days of writing. Because I completely forgot about that, writing your name down on a board to play the next court.
Oh
Because I
yeah.
remember I remember going there on Sundays, and we'd be out till like 2 or 3 in the morning, and then wake up and then go play basketball there for 3 hours straight. And it's like, well, for one, I don't think I can stay out till 3 o'clock in the morning anymore. And if I do stay out till 3 o'clock in the morning, there is no way in hell I'm gonna be go play pickup basketball for the next 3 hours. And even like I struggle even going to rec league every Wednesday night we have half the time.
Yeah, man, it's
But
crazy. Well, we I mean, we had a lot more energy back then, man. It's
yeah,
I think our bodies were just used to getting 4 or 5 hours of sleep, and I mean, I remember it, and I don't know if they still do the whole. It's been a while since I've been up to the wellness center, but if they still do the whole marker and that, or if it's just first five after whoever loses, or I don't know. I mean, it
yeah.
seemed like every week that you went, some new system was being implemented, but um, yeah, I mean, we'd go on the weekends too. There was one time I played like 9 straight games,
Whew.
because we managed to win 9 straight in a row. And I tell you what, it was the most random set of players that you could have, but somehow we had a lady that had to be. You probably remember her because she was there for a long time. Uh, she was at least pushing 60, 65 maybe. Gray hair, but she could ball. Like I no joke. Like she could go up and down. She was good at distributing all this stuff. And then we had just a hodgepodge of players. And for whatever reason, I don't know if we just got lucky that day, but man, we ran the courts for like 3.5 hours. And I remember we won our ninth game, but we were all so exhausted, and like we had been there for so long that we were like, we're done. Like we're going home. Next
Walk
group of,
off
like,
winners.
yeah, because everybody was like, we got to get this team out, like we got to beat these guys. And yeah, so that was the amount of success I had at pickup basketball in college.
Yeah.
Never won a T-shirt at intramurals. Came close. We got to the championship, uh, and lost. We only had 5 guys fouled out. One of the guys fouled out, played 4-on-5, and ended up losing by 2. We were
Oh.
up by 15. That one still hurts. Not gonna lie, that one.
Yeah.
I'll be telling my grandkids that story.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, I know us we were in the made it to the championship in 2020, and then the week of the championship everything got shut down because of COVID. So it's a missing ring that we just haven't been able to find. We made it to the championship in the bottom league this year, and we just ended up not we didn't have enough scoring to get us over the hump, but I guess there's always next year.
did you ever do
But
flag football?
I think my freshman year, yeah, because I think we were on the same team.
Did we do?
I think it was maybe it was with like Adam and Logan and
Oh
I
yeah,
think
yeah,
Mason was on there.
yeah. You're right. Yeah,
Wyatt, yeah,
I remember. I'll never forget that first game. That was. I think we were playing some like sixth year seniors, or obviously fifth year seniors, but it was like these guys freaking. God, we were just out there to have a good time. I don't even think really any of us
yeah,
were really expecting much, and all of a sudden it was like we blinked and we were down 25 points or whatever it was,
yeah,
and I was like, oh geez, these guys take it seriously. But uh, I just knew, like, when I got to college, I'm a competitive person, and I don't like I take losing like whatever, but like I get competitive. But I realize in college there's no point in getting like overly competitive about it, because it's like it's intramural like flag football.
yeah,
Like it's not like I'm playing for the United, the Midwest elite, flag football, whatever, if that even exists. But you know what I mean? It's like uh I just realized early, I'm like, well, this is how it's gonna be.
yeah. It's fun. It just takes your mind off anything that could be getting to you. I know we have softball starting this week. I just got a phone call for got to pick up our jerseys, so
Oh, there
got
you
that
go.
to look forward to. And then back to college. You went to NDSU. What did you study? What did you study there?
So I studied sport management, and then so I mean, really, for those who maybe aren't familiar what sport management is, it's really just you get to work in sports, and it's either sales, marketing, broadcasting, coaching. I mean, it's kind of whatever you want it to be, which is part of the reason why I wanted to get into that. And then I immediately went into grad school at NDSU, and got a master's in physical education, which would have been the kind of what I needed to really solidify like a coaching kind of background. So did that right away. I didn't take any time off. Literally get graduated in December, and that following that following spring, yeah, and I was in graduate school, so just cranked her out. But yeah, loved every second of it though. Loved love NDSU. Big fan, obviously, of the herd. Had a lot of family. Both my parents graduated there, so I think I knew I was going to NDSU before I maybe even realized it as a kid. But um, yeah, loved the days at being a Bison. Still am.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So yeah, sport management. Now, and you did your grad school. What did your grad school all entail? As far as were you doing any teaching? Were you doing any?
Yeah.
Were you just doing coursework, or what did your grad school all entail?
So it was partially teaching, partial class, like classroom education. So the teaching was I was given like three courses a semester, where I was basically in the PE field or setting, and I had to instruct undergraduate students in a particular activity. So sometimes I think one I did like dodgeball was one. I did a basketball one, of course, badminton, and a volleyball. Um, and so between that kind of those four, me and two other students kind of rotated those classes. And so for 2 years, that's what I did every semester to get that kind of classroom practicum work, if you would want to call it that. Um, cool story,
Okay.
cool little tidbit. You know, when you take those, I mean, they're like, what do you call them? Elective courses for a lot of kids. So you know, kids are just taking wellness credits or whatever you want to call it. I did have Cody Mauk, who just got drafted here by the Bucks,
Yep.
in my badminton class. I knew he was very agile then, so it was no surprise that he went on to have the amount of success that he did. I
How
had
old was he in that class? He had
He
to
was
be
a
what, a
redshirt.
freshman?
Yeah, he was a redshirt
Okay.
that year. Yep, yep. And so I had Kobe Johnson, Jalen Boosie, um, let's see, Aaron Steidel was in there, and then I had Christian Watson, but he was just coming off of foot surgery or something, so he was in a boot for the class for the
Oh,
majority of the class, so he couldn't participate, but he did show up and um, at least cheered on his teammates. And then Jabril Cox was another guy that I had. So I had some pretty notable players that went on to go do some things in their collegiate career. And so it was always fun for me to try not to fanboy him, because I'm a huge
yeah.
football, basketball, whatever you want it. So you have to. I kind of had to keep my teacher hat on when I was in those environments. But very cool to just say that I got to kind of share space with them at some point in their college career.
Yeah, what were they like in class? Because were they,
Super, super.
obviously this were they, they were there, they showed up, they gave
Oh yeah,
effort. Sometimes
yeah.
sometimes you see it. Like, I remember having a few athletes where they just kind of felt like some of them would go through the motions or things like that. Were they
No,
there and they gave their best effort every
oh
time?
yeah, nothing but great things. They were honestly, without those guys probably in some of those classes, it would have been pretty hard to kind of get like get the energy level to come up, if you will, because I'll be honest, a badminton class is not like jump off the page exciting, but those guys, like their energy level, the kind of competitive nature that they brought, they were willing participants, in class. So I guess from my experience, I had great experiences with some of those guys, and to be honest, like if some of them wouldn't have maybe tried as hard, like I would have understood because you're not trying to get hurt in a badminton class. But these guys went all out. I mean, it was intense. It was fun to see it and see kind of their competitive nature come out. And whether, like I said, whether it was badminton, volleyball, dodgeball, I mean, it was like, hey man, like these guys, it doesn't matter what they're doing. Somebody wants to win. And I had Easton Stick. I had a class with him, and Easton was great. I had like I think one or two times we were partnered up for like a group thing, and just unbelievable guy, just as you would imagine Easton Stick being.
Yep.
I can tell you from real world interaction with him, he was cool as a cucumber, and very very involved, very engaged. So yeah, I had great experiences with some of those athletes.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's kind of just the type of people that NDSU really tries to recruit is they try to recruit guys that are going to give effort. They're going to show up every day,
Hmm.
and days where it'd be easy for them, like, oh, I'm big macho NDSU guy. I can slack off here. I don't need to, but showing up, giving effort in everything they do, and doing, talk with a big thing that's mentioned around the NDSU campus is Bison Pride, and that's part of that is being a student athlete and giving your best effort because you do want to graduate and get a degree from NDSU.
Yeah, and in part of my sport management kind of background, I spent one season. So I try not to make it seem like it was a long time, but I spent one season as a student manager for the basketball team. So that was when the team was playing down at the Shields Arena. So the shack was still being
Yep.
renovated and whatnot. So Dexter Warner was on that team, good buddy of mine, works over at Choice Bank now. Malik Clemens, Paul Miller, um,
Oh yeah.
and I know I'm missing Kai Cabellis was on that team. AJ Jacobson. So a really solid squad. I remember the first time I walked into practice. Casey Matthews was the basketball operations guy, and Spencer Wilker, who's now an assistant coach, was
Yep.
in charge of all the student managers. So it was really cool to see him work his way up. But the first day I walked into practice, they were working out at a NDSU was renting a warehouse. You know where the Stay Mart is?
Oh yeah, yeah. It was
Yeah.
the old. It was the old like really small Hornbachers. It was right next to CVS. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
so
Because I was a manager the year before for like a semester, and then I didn't. Josh Vaughn was my boss, and it was kind of funny because he was the head basketball coach at DSU Dickinson State for a few years, and I'd run into him and always chat with him.
yeah,
But yeah, Carlin was on that team.
yep, Carlin.
I've told a few people this story, but when I was a manager and it was before practice and everyone was kind of just shooting, and I jokingly, like, I went up to Carlin and was gonna start guarding him, and I was running my mouth a little bit, probably more than I should have, and I said something that crossed the line with him, and he just decided, okay, I'm a Division 1 athlete, you're not, and like just put on these crazy dribble moves, and I was guarding him out on the 3-point line. I think I ended up underneath the hoop, and he's like, okay, you still gonna talk? Nope.
Nope. Yeah, those guys. It was well, same kind of thing. I walked in, and I just love being around. I mean, basketball is kind of my first love. I love football too, but I just love being around players that also love the game. And so, the first time I walked into practice, like I said, it was a warehouse that was just kind of very makeshift. But the guys were so friendly or whatever. And one of the cool things was Coach Richmond at that first practice. He kind of introduced us into the group. Said, "Hey, these are going to be our student managers this year. Make sure you treat them with respect. They're part of the team, so you know they're an extension of who we are, Bison culture." And that was really cool for him to do that. Plus, it kind of eased us into what a practice would be. But it was, I tell you what, I was kind of in charge of videoing. That was kind of I guess, my duty or role. So I sat up in the crow's nest for a lot of practices, and just to be a fly on the wall, essentially, was really cool. I still take a lot of what I learned in those practices and implement them into what I do with coaching kids and kind of the structure of how things should be ran. And Coach Richmond, I'll tell you, he's a polarizing guy. Kind of has a very intense feel to him, but he
Can confirm. Yep.
yeah, he is as good a coach as you'll ever meet, and I would say, he just demands excellence at every juncture of, either you're a red shirt, a guy that's a senior. I mean, the level of standard that he expects is uniformity across the board, and it's not just players, it's coaches, it's student managers. So um, I really gained a lot of respect for him just being in those practices, because I'm like, this is what a Division I coach, Division I, practice looks like. It's intense, it's grinded out, it's not hold your hand type stuff. It's like, we're here to work, we're here to get, stuff done. And if you're late to the game, quote unquote, you're gonna get left in the dust. So I always just respected the way that he operated, and had a great time with the assistant coaches too. And I'm drawing a blank. Coach Eric Henderson was
Yep.
on the
Yeah,
staff, and
great
now,
dude.
yeah, awesome dude, super
Poor choice
super.
he went to, but
Yeah,
his
I
how,
think,
he's that good of a dude. You can look past him. I actually
yeah,
emailed him after they beat NDSU last year in the championship to congratulate him. And um, the one thing you hit the nail on the head is Coach Richmond. He's hard on you. He's gonna push you. He's not gonna hold anything back. He's gonna tell you like it is. And it's not because he doesn't like you or has something against you. It's because he cares. He's invested his time into you, and he wants to see you go on to become a great employer, whatever you're doing, father, husband, and he knows that he can't go soft on it, go soft on you. And that was one of my biggest takeaways is from working with him is he's gonna get on you, but he's also gonna be your biggest supporter. I can remember a game when I was a manager when when NDSU was playing Akron,
mm,
and it was his first year, and I think AJ Jacobson and Paul Miller were hurt, and I actually had to drive, and Spencer Elias, he was redshirting, but he was sick, and I missed the entire first half because I had to drive Paul and Spencer back up to the dorm, and Shields Arena is in way South Fargo.
yeah,
Fargo
it's
is
not close to
the
campus.
NDSU campus is in North Fargo, so I'm driving them back. I'm speeding. I probably shouldn't have been because the road it was in the middle of a snowstorm. Akron was at the time they were coached by LeBron James's high school coach,
Yep.
and they were ranked in the mid-major poll. They were ranked like number 12 or something. And NDSU was down to like 7 guys and that they could play. And I remember listening, it's like, oh, they're hanging around, they're hanging around. I get back at half, right as the second half is about to tip off, and watching it. And NDSU, I think, was they controlled most of the game, and then all of a sudden at about probably the under 12 timeout. And you being a manager, you know how that is, and accurate
Oh yeah.
where it's you gotta go around, you gotta make sure the tables or the chairs are sitting and everything like that. And it was a point where Akron was making a run, and I remember looking at some of the managers, and we were like all sitting there thinking like, oh, they're gonna get an ass chewing. It's gonna get ugly. And he comes in just all amped up. Woo! Let's go, boys! And he's all excited. He's like, this is what we want. We got them right where we want them. We're gonna go finish the job here. We've been, you guys have. We're at this point in practice where it's how are we going to finish? We're going to go. We have the knife turned in. We're going to go finish it. We're going to turn the knife on, and we're going to go win this game. And they didn't sub the entire second half, and they go on to win, make their free throws, and win. And I just remember Corey Brown coming out of the
Yeah.
locker room after they were done talking, and he just picks me up and like hugs me with with excitement.
Those guys, yeah, and especially those teams of old or past or whatever, however you want to coin it. Um, those were some really fun teams to watch, and obviously now when you look at the team that NDSU has now, and Grant, having the amount of success that he has, and kind of putting some some spotlight on NDSU for what he's doing. It's really cool to say that you've had kind of an inside view of how that culture works, and then to like, if for people that maybe aren't totally familiar with this area or whatever. I mean, it's a kind of a who's who community. So, for me being in the real estate world, I like I said, I mentioned Dexter Warner's over at Choice Bank. He's in lending. I've had some coffees with him, and caught up with a few other guys. And so, well, James Hendricks is he's on the football side, but he's my financial
Yep.
advisor over at Northwestern Mutual. So it's funny how these guys have made their kind of inroads in the Fargo Moorhead community and have stuck around, which is great. But certainly, it's kind of cool. I always say it's kind of a weird flex, but it's always fun to be able to like, approach those guys in a very, hey, how's it going? What have you been up to? Kind of conversation, and definitely, to have that kind of in your back pocket is a pretty cool thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And even Freddie Coleman was part of that staff too. And
Oh
I
yeah,
ran into
Freddie.
Freddie
Yeah.
this past summer. I was in Fargo. We were going down to Florida. We were flying down there, and my sister, she graduates from Fargo on Saturday. So, and she just turned 21. So she bugged me to go out to the bar, go to downtown Fargo, and we were at Fort Knox, and I was hanging out, and I look, and I'm like, man, that looks like Freddie. So I went up to him, and I was like, you're Freddie Coleman. He's like, I am. And I'm like, I don't know if you remember me, but I was a manager for a brief time. And he took him a little bit. He remembered it. And we probably talked for a half hour, and he was asking questions about talking to my sister, taking interest in her. And she came away really impressed. And it was like, this is the type of culture that Coach Richmond wants. And it's established, and it's led to the success that they've had. And I don't know how you feel about it, Blaine, and you're maybe a little bit closer compared to where I am,
Mhm.
4 hours away. But when I went to NDSU, I enjoyed going to the basketball games more than I enjoyed going to the football games. And I I think that the product that they put on the court every year is tremendous. They've been in 5 straight Summit League championships. I wish they would get a much better following. You kind of go and look and you see there's some teams that, which is understandable, that aren't the greatest, that aren't going to get a draw. Part of it is the Summit League needs to stop scheduling South Dakota State and UND during Christmas break so we can get some good
Right.
atmospheres.
Yep.
But I wish like the basketball team, and even now the girls, who have shown tremendous improvement because they were abysmal when we were there.
Yeah.
I wish they would get that more consistent support and turnout that the football team got.
It's funny. So and this is going to date me a little bit, but when I first got to campus, which was in 2013, the
Yep.
shack was the old school shack, and
I miss the BSA though. That place was.
yeah, or the
I mean,
BSA, the
it
Bison
wasn't the
Sports
most
Arena, and
prettiest thing,
no,
but that place got loud.
it got loud. I always compared it to like a Midwest version of, well, and this isn't too far off but I think of Hoosiers, the movie,
Yep.
and just kind of that throwback, early, whatever type atmosphere, early '90s, and so uh, Mason and Christian and a couple other buddies, Zach Brown, we would walk from our dorm. We were in Stockbridge, just down the road, down the street to the BSA. And I tell you what, Dylan, it was like you had to get there early. Like that was a time when you
Yep.
couldn't show up at, right before tip off. Like you had to be there at least 25 minutes before, um, and find a spot. And I mean, it was, I just missed out on the Ben Woodside, um,
Yep.
era. He had just gone overseas to start playing over. I think he was in Spain or Europe at the time. But that was Taylor Braun, Trayvon Wright, Marshall Borkland. Um, gosh, who? There was a sharpshooter that.
Mike Felt,
Yep, Mike Felt. Yep,
Jordan Auberg,
yes, yep. That team
yeah, Marshall Bjorkland,
and
L.A. Yeah, because we were the same age, so we went. And the best part about the BSA was the student section. You were right on top of the visitors bench, and just
oh yeah,
you could say whatever you wanted, and they it
it
was
was
it was so much fun.
it was entertaining, and those were times where you stayed till the end of the game. It wasn't like you were cutting out, early second half or whatever. And to kind of, you know, answer your question, as far as why they maybe don't get more of a following. Well, you got to think about football in Bison football is just a different animal. And it's not to take away, and this is purely my opinion, but it's not to take away from what the basketball and even the softball, the wrestling, some of the other sports, the baseball,
Track.
like NDSU has had tremendous success across a
Yep.
lot of different sports. It's just that when the football started to take off and just and I think, and this might be kind of maybe a hot take or something, but when you look at the longevity of what the football program did and capping it off, winning, you know, 9 championships in 12 years or 9 championships in 11 years, whatever it is. Again, you and I being the same age, we can remember you had to show up at the Memorial Union early at
Yep.
5:30 to get a ticket at 6 a.m. and you were still in class for your 8 a.m. Now it's a little different. Everything's online. But I remember walking to the Union, standing in line, purchasing my ticket. Me, Mason, and Christian, my roommates at the time, I was not a morning person like they were in the sense that they were willing to go stand out in sub-zero temperatures to get a
Yep.
spot in line. So the deal was they'd go get spots in line, I'd bring them coffee, and we would wait for hours before we could get into a game. The hottest days in September, early part of the
Yep.
schedule, all the way deep into the playoffs. I mean, we were out there, and now it's just a little different. And I think the community, more so the students, maybe have just become accustomed to what NDSU, especially the football side of it, is doing. And so maybe there's not just that heightened or newness to it, right? A lot of like when we were in school, it was like, we've never
Yeah.
done this before. We've got guys going to the NFL. We've got big time networks talking about us. ESPN, Game Day was here twice. I mean, it was just a different time to be at NDSU. And a really cool like little factoid about all of it is I didn't see anything less than a championship during my time in school when it came to the football world.
Yep.
Uh,
Yeah, me either.
it's just that I just think like, and I totally agree. I think the women's basketball program, the men's, I think they deserve more recognition and following. It's just when you start to compare apples to apples, man, it's hard to look past just how extraordinary and unfathomable of what the football team was doing. What was happening was you just never heard of that, and you're comparing yourself against the Alabamas, the LSU's, the
We want
Georgias,
Bama. I remember those signs.
like I mean it was real, like. And I don't know if if I always laughed when I saw the "We Want Bama" signs. I was like, I don't know if we really want Bama, but we'll
Yeah.
take we'll take other schools before. But no, it was just a really good time. Great time to be a Bison, still is, and a campus and a university I like to continue to always support. I'm a team makers now. I got season tickets. I do the whole thing. So yeah.
Okay. Okay. So if I ever need tickets, I know
You ever
where to
need
go. It
tickets,
gets
man?
Yeah. Well, my issue is it gets hectic because I coach football now, so it's always tough to we have games Friday night, so it's hard to you get done, you just kind of want to relax and just watch it on TV, but maybe and then like the weather we had in this winter or even in like November where it was just crappy weather. It's like I don't really want to drive 4 hours in this stuff, and so I
Right.
haven't been to a game. The last game I went to was the game they played at Target Field in 2019.
Okay.
But to your point too is and I the waiting in line. I lucked out. I only had to do it the 1 year because I was hosting officials, so I was always there like 3 hours early in the dome waiting while you guys were, especially
Freezing
in
our
those
butts off.
playoff games where it got cold. It was
It
it
got
was I
cold.
was I was nice and warm and watching the visitor come face to face by me, and sometimes having the officials also, depending on how the games went. For the most part, in my time at NDSU, they only lost one time in the dome, and that was to South Dakota. That was the game Carson broke his wrist. But
Yep.
we talked about the success NDSU has had, and Grant Nelson getting invited to the combine. Do you how do you think he's going to fare, and do you think he's going to, his name is in the transfer portal now.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't mean he's not coming back, doesn't mean he is. It could mean he's going to play somewhere. How do you think he's going to do at the combine? And do you think what's your gut say about if he's going to keep his name in the draft or look to play somewhere else now?
You know, in the time, so I knew Grant in high school. Like I knew who he was, and obviously the amount of success that he had in high school. Once he got to NDSU, just had a really lucky privilege to get him to come out to shoot 360 and obviously become aboard as an NIL athlete. And so he was an ambassador for us. And so we did a couple camps with him. Unbelievable guy, very quiet. One of those guys that I think as he gets more comfortable, he gets a little bit more expressive, but kind of keeps to himself. But did a fantastic job with the kids. As far as his game goes, I think he has tremendous upside. I mean, at 6'11", to be able to stretch the floor, he can hit the three, he can put it on the ground. Size in the NBA, he's got obviously height is there. He's 6'11". Size wise, I think any team that would look at him, might say he might need to put on 15, 20 pounds just to fill out his frame. But one thing that I know since his time coming from Devil's Lake, that's his little hometown, to
Yep.
his time at NDSU, he put on a considerable amount of weight as well. So I think maybe the margin there is not as far as I think, but I would say that would just be one area that I would guess that scouts are going to say, like, he'll probably have to put on a little bit of weight. But I think he has a legitimate shot um, to get looked by teams if it ends up not working out necessarily where maybe the chatter just isn't there. I don't expect him to come back to NDSU, but it wouldn't surprise me if that makes sense. So he's a hometown kid. When he had a camp with us, he had kids coming 3.5 hours from Devil's Lake just to be in his camp. I think home means a lot to him. And I don't necessarily think bright lights and flashiness and playing at a Power Five school or, I don't necessarily think that's an overarching priority to him. I could be totally way off base, but I just don't get that impression from him. If he ends up at a Ohio State or,
No, don't
I don't,
say that. Don't
I'm
don't
just
say
throwing out a
Ohio State.
team.
You can say any team, Blaine, but you can't say Ohio
Oh
State.
yeah,
Come
you're
on, man.
you're a Michigan guy, so yeah, so any team like Texas or whoever, um, he'd have all the opportunity there to go have tremendous amounts of success. But if he decided, hey, I want to come back to Fargo and play another year with Coach Richmond and his and the team that they have coming back, wouldn't shock me. He's just a different cat, and like I said, because he keeps to himself, he really doesn't give you too much direction one way or the other of what he's thinking. So it'll be fun to just see, and if he has the opportunity to impress scouts and somebody likes him and gets picked up, I mean, what a tremendous uh, just for the state of North Dakota and Devil's Lake and obviously NDSU. What a great thing um, for everybody that's gotten to see him play, and especially for him and his family. I know he comes from a big family, though. It's really, obviously, really cool when you get a small town kid make it big like that. And we've seen it with other players, obviously, with Carson and Trey and some of the other players that have come through. But in terms of basketball success, we really haven't seen a guy get invited to the combine and go down the path that he's going.
Yeah, yeah, and I mean, Cody Mock you can throw in there as well.
Yeah, Cody,
You know,
of
and
course. Yeah.
and the thing too with Grant, you brought up a good point, Blaine, about how when he came to NDSU or one of the knocks is he needs to put on more. He did put on, and another thing too is when he came to NDSU, he wasn't really well known for being a 3-point shooter, And
No,
when that highlight reel kind of came out of him, that was one of the knocks. But you definitely could see as the season progressed, his the effort he was putting in and taking those shots. I don't know exactly, but he was shooting it a lot more confident, and he was making it at a high level. He didn't shoot a lot of threes, but anytime he shot it, I expected it to go in.
the way that the game is played, obviously it's a 3-point barrage of how a lot of teams like to play. And I've always said if you could get your stretch four, even your center, to be able to step out and hit mid-range shots and even step back and hit a 3-point shot and feel comfortable doing it. I mean, that's an entirely different dynamic that you have to guard because um, teams of past would not have been able to guard a Grant Nelson just because the other four of the five that was matching up against him would not have been capable of stretching that far out to defend. They're just not used to being that far away from the hoop. Um, and it shows you to go. It just goes to show, like a guy like Marshall Borkland, who I got to watch, uh, literally front row, absolutely dominate players in the post, to a guy like Grant Nelson now that can
Beautiful,
bang.
beautiful baby hook.
Oh, just one of the most fundamentally sound players you'll ever see in Marshall Borkland, to a guy like Grant Nelson who can put the ball on the deck, be explosive at the rim, but also be finesse. Also can, um, dare I say, I'm just going off the top of my head just because the playoffs are going on, but kind of reminds me of in terms of his ability at his height, like a Kevin Durant. Kevin Durant's
Yeah,
tall, skinny. Obviously, I'm not saying that Grant Nelson is Kevin Durant. I'm just saying the player profile is very similar in terms of how they get their shot off uh, and how they maneuver around the hoop.
yeah, yeah, exactly. I think I can't remember who they've said it, who is some of his player comps are other than KD. But do you know if has he gotten any offers or any levels of interest from some Power Five schools at all since he's put his name in the portal?
I don't know. I've seen some things on Twitter, but I wouldn't go out on record and say that there's any truth or accuracy to them. I think everybody's kind of trying to latch on to any maybe earlier conversations or rumblings that they may have heard and are kind of running with it. So I'm going to say I haven't heard anything. Like I said, I think uh, whether he goes to another school or comes back, that I'm not. That I can say it won't surprise me either way. Whatever he decides to do, it will be exactly what Grant Nelson wants to do.
Yeah, yeah, and just gotta support it. Unless he goes to Ohio State, then he's dead to me.
Yeah,
But so now you did the shoot 360. Do you do any coaching at all? Have you gotten into the coaching realm?
I have. I coached an eighth grade team this year, out in Heritage, which is Horace, North Dakota. So middle school team had a fantastic time. Great group of kids, great group of parents. Uh, and their experience level was low, but enthusiasm, determination was all extremely high. So as a coach, I coach. I like to coach X's and O's, and I tell any team that I have an opportunity to coach, I don't coach energy and effort. Those are two things that I don't coach. You have to bring those to the table, and I will hopefully take care of everything else for them in terms of putting them in the right spot. So that was the overarching message with that group. And I love doing it. They had a great time. I tell people if I ever go on and have any sort of success in the coaching world, and people will one day ask me, well, who is your most favorite team or team that you credit the most with how you approach coaching now? Is I would say this eighth grade team out in Horace, North Dakota, just because the kids were uninhibited. They while their experience level wasn't very high, they worked incredibly hard in practice and just wanted to get better from game to game. Parents saw that. I had a great support from the parents, which makes my job as you know, in the
Yeah.
coaching world, a lot easier
Oh,
when you have the parents
absolutely.
back you up. And so it was a learning curve for everybody. I don't think anybody had an answer for every problem, but um, together we finished 6-3, finished third place at the end of the season tournament, and really had a great time doing that. Hoping to do more of that in the next little bit. Um, whether it's out at Horace or somewhere else. That was one of the things that, not necessarily now being directly affiliated with Shoot 360, I can kind of branch out and do some different coaching things just because there's less conflict of interest with me. Being out in the community and also being a part of 360. That was um, kind of a no-no in the early going, but now that like I said, I'm a little bit further away from the 360 side, I can do some of this other stuff.
Yeah, and well, and from my experience too is like that first group is always it's always a special group because that they're the ones that got you into it and got you hooked. And you said about not having the most talented team, but that's always I look back at like I coached 2 years at the at Dickinson Middle School, and then now I'll be going into my this fall I'll be going into my fourth year at Trinity coaching junior high and helping out with varsity. And my second year, I was coaching seventh grade B, and it was like 50. I'm looking at the picture now, and I still don't know how we did it with only three coaches. And I probably had like 25 kids, just myself as the B coach. And we were at the beginning of the year, we got to a point where we were able to run plays, and I told receivers to stand by me. I'll tell you guys a play, you guys go tell the quarterback, you run in, you do the play. And it got to about 3 or 4 plays, and one of the kids asked me, well, coach, when do I get to go in? I'm like, well, you're a receiver, haven't you been going in every play? Oh, I was supposed to go in and play when we told the quarterback to play. I was like, yeah. And I instantly right away, it was like I got mad. I'm like, I kind of had to take like a deep breath. I'm like, okay, this is not your fault. You didn't know. So yes, so when we tell you a play, you go in, tell the other two receivers to come off, and you run the play, and we'll rotate. But that level of seeing like where there's the talent might not always be there, but those kids, like you said, you don't coach energy or effort, that's something they have to bring. And you could tell that by the way they practiced, and they wanted to improve, and seeing them come along from where we were to there, where we were able to go down the field and get score a touchdown and get like maintain drives and
Hmm.
tackle, and seeing that improvement week to week is one of the most rewarding feelings that you'll ever
Oh
feel.
yeah, yeah, and it's better than any any win. I would always say was just the improvement from week to week, practice to practice, game to game. And I said, as long as we're taking 2 steps forward, if we have to take a step back, we will. But it's always got to be two feet in front of the other, and we'll learn kind of along as a team, right? And I told them from day one, I said, I don't have all the answers, and I'm not going to sit here and say, I know this, and this. It's me helping you, you helping me, and at the end of the day, we're going to win as a team, we're going to lose as a team, and that is a philosophy that I think any coach, whether you've been coaching for 1 year or 20 years, that's something you just always have to be uh, cognizant of, is understanding that no one player or one coach is better than the other. It's and I love working as a team in that respect, like because I don't always see everything either. I'm not on the court obviously when I'm coaching. So if you see something, you see a look or read or whatever, well, let me know about it. Let's see if we can work at doing something together. So.
Yeah. So how has working at Shoot 360, and then your time as a manager for the NDSU basketball team, how has that connected, and how has that helped you coach in your coaching career?
Well, Shoot 360 was such a really cool environment in terms that I met. a lot of different personalities and a lot of different backgrounds, stories. And so I think what it taught me was patience. It taught me that everybody has a different story, and there's, everybody's going through something. So from a coaching perspective, I always tried to keep that um, level-headedness about me, and that, you know, I don't know how a kid's day went necessarily. If he bombed a test or going through, how kids at middle school, high school are going through a tough breakup, something. I don't know those things, and whether they want to divulge that information, it's totally up to them. But knowing that you can't just coach every single kid the same. Uh, it really helped me being in a setting like Shoe 360, and then obviously you take two ends of the spectrum. You're dealing with young kids, and then you go to the student manager side. Those are grown men, grown adults. But they're also going through things, pressures of finals tests, trying to figure out what they're going to do with their lives after basketball for most of them. Um, so just seeing both ends of the spectrum, I think for me, it just said, you really just gotta treat each team and each season case by case. There's what you did in the season before is not what's going to work this year. What you said to this player, 8 months ago is not necessarily going to be the same message that you're going to tell them now. You hope that they've matured and grown and learned from what they've experienced thus far. So now it's your job as a coach to continue to mold them and get them ready to be uh, integral parts of their communities wherever they end up going. So I think it's really just a bigger conversation of implementing those things from each practice, stacking good practices on good practices, and then hoping when they get down the way and they're on their own that you've been able to influence them in a positive way to have some success.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And coaching the level or age we coach at, it's such a tough age too because their bodies are changing faster than they know.
Hmm.
There all sorts of different hormones going. Yeah, puberty, and they're handling a bunch of different things, different distractions, and it's even magnified from compared to when we were that age because most kids when we were in that age, very few had cell phones. Now everybody has a cell phone at that
Right.
age.
Yeah.
There's all different sorts, and it's managing, and you want that, trying to get them to mold them into, being good employees, fathers, husbands, um uh in, members of community. I saw a quote a while back is worry less about wins and worry more about raising winners in life,
Hmm.
and that's the ultimate goal. And it is fun. It's one of those things too. Even like because I mean, both you and I were not teachers, so that was always the exciting part for me is going to being able to look forward to something after after a day of work, whether you had a good or a bad day. You're able to kind of put that off and not think about it and enjoy, and you get think about how lucky you are to coach a game and be a part of and molding that, hopefully molding that love of the sport you have into younger generations to where they have the same love.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%.
Yeah, so I know you're a Lakers fan, and I know they just started. So we got one more question, and we'll get you out of here, Blaine. And I guess I wouldn't say it's a question, but you talked about you enjoyed playing video games.
Hmm.
So if you had to do a Mount Rushmore of video games, and we'll
Oh,
both do this, what is on
okay.
your Mount Rushmore of video games?
Okay. So, and this is probably gonna upset some people, but I was so bad at Call of Duty growing up as a kid.
Oh
I
yes, me too.
my friends like wanted me to play Call of Duty just to pat their stats because they knew I was an easy dub for some of them. But so my Mount Rushmore would be uh the college, the NC EA Sports college football. When that was a thing,
Which year?
Oh man. I remember when Reggie Bush was on the cover.
Oh
Um,
seven. Yep. Okay.
so that was '07. I'd have to go.
Now, are you a Xbox or are you a PlayStation?
I'm an Xbox guy, so
Okay. Okay.
wasn't always that. It was PlayStation then Xbox, but so the '07 NCAA, uh, my one of my favorite, just because it was the first ever game that I really had, was the Ray Lewis. I think it was 2005.
Oh five.
Matt,
Madden. Yeah.
yeah,
Yep.
Madden. Um, so that's two. It's a lot of it's gonna be football. First 2K I ever had was 2K. Ben Wallace was on the cover.
Oh
Uh,
man. Now you're really made that.
yeah, that was back
That
in the
it was
Detroit
like
Pistons day.
oh 06, oh 07
Yeah,
probably.
oh
I'll
six oh.
let you round out your last one and I'll see if I can find it.
And then oh gosh, whatever year that they started adding the quarterback field sense. So like, do you remember that little where the quarterback's eyes would, you could
Oh, the QB
see it on,
Vision.
yeah, the QB
Yeah, that
vision.
was that like I think it was the 2006 maybe 2007,
Yeah,
and then the Ben Wallace it
I
was
know Brett Favre is
2K5.
might have been Brett Favre. Okay, yeah,
Oh, that could
yep.
be too. Okay,
So yeah, that would be my.
okay that one. Yeah, that's a solid list here. So for me, I would go. Similar to you, I had a PS. I started with a PS2, and then all my friends got 360s, so I got that. Now I have an Xbox One, but I play two games. I still have my 360 at my house. I play two games on it. I play NCAA 14. I've probably put through all the different dynasties and campus legends. I've probably
Oh
put
yeah,
on a conservative side probably close to 150 seasons
sure.
together. Uh, and so NCAA 14, and then I'm trying to think what other ones are there. There's quite a few honorable mentions too. Like the first NCAA game I got was NCAA 05. That one was a fun one because they had like all the old games that you could redo or go back
Oh
and
yeah,
play.
yep,
Um, and then '06, that was the first where they had the race to the Heisman.
yep.
Those would probably be my honorable mentions. And then, yeah, Madden '05 would be an honorable mention. Um, I'm, and actually, that might, if I had to pick a Madden game, that Madden '05 might be the one because the last few Maddens have not been good at all. And I'm hoping
It's
when the
hard to
new
see the
NCAA
difference.
game,
It's hard to see the difference in the newer games than back then, because back then, year to year, it was like they were coming out with all new different types of like hit stick and quarterback
yeah,
vision and eats, ball hawk and all this stuff. So
I wasn't a huge fan of the quarterback vision, but the hit stick and like the mini games in Madden were so much fun to play.
oh yeah, yeah,
And
100%.
like it's funny too because like not too long ago like on TikTok that they would show like guys playing these old games and it was just brought back all the memories of like
The
oh yeah, I
nostalgia.
remember those.
Yeah,
Yep. Yep. And MVP baseball '05, that one is definitely on the Mount Rushmore. Uh I would go, and I'm similar where, yeah, I was not a good Call of Duty player. I played it and it was fun to play, but I was not good at all. And then so I have NCAA 14, MVP baseball '05, NBA. I really liked NBA 2K16. Well, that was when they had like the My Player and you could go play in college,
yep,
and you were called frequency vibrations.
yep,
Um,
yep. I remember that.
played that one for a long time, and then to round out my Mount Rushmore, ooh man, um, oh, this is a little bit of a throwback, but Need for Speed Hot Pursuit 2.
Oh yeah,
I
yeah.
played that game for hours, and I got one of those like steering wheels that you could
Oh
controller
yeah.
steering wheels too that you
Oh
could
yeah.
play and has the pedal and everything. I played that for a lot too. So
Yeah.
that's my list.
Hey, that's a
But
good list. I like that. That's a good list.
yeah, yeah, we got bringing back the nostalgia for everybody that's listening. But Blaine, this was a lot of fun. We probably could have went on for probably about another hour and a half or so, but I guess that's just another reason you're gonna have to come back.
Hey man,
So,
yeah, I'm all for it. Have me after the we'll see what happens with Grant here, and we'll let some things
oh
let
yeah,
some dust settle on some of the few or the big sports topics out there, and I'd love to come back and discuss with you.
yeah, yeah, and we didn't even get to really talk about you get doing much real estate. So by then you'll be able to have your feet from be a little bit more slowed down. Kind of got you get your license, and we could talk about that. And and then where can people find your socials in here and plug you and get in contact with you?
I'm on the basic ones: Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Blaine Cook 23, I think, is a lot of them. If you search Blaine Cook, there's not a lot of Blaine Cooks out there, so you can definitely find me out there. And yeah, as far as real estate goes, if you know anybody looking to buy, sell, or invest, I would love to help anybody out there. Shameless plug, but I got to.
Yeah. Well, we'll discuss sponsorships after off
Yeah, there
when
we
we're
go.
done recording.
For sure.
All right. Well, thank you, Blade.
Thank you.